He can't answer right now, my stepmother said, holding my dad's phone in her hand, and that was the moment I knew something was wrong. 2 weeks earlier, my dad had called me every night from overseas. Same time like clockwork, usually around 9:30 p.m. My time, his voice, steady, predictable, always ending with the same line, "I'll call you tomorrow, M." I didn't think about it then because that's just who he was, consistent, structured, reliable in a way that made you feel like nothing could ever go off track. But then the calls got shorter, just a few minutes instead of 30. Then one night, it was just a text. "Busy today, talk later," and something about it felt off, not the words themselves, but the way they sat there on my screen, flat, empty, like they didn't belong to him. I noticed it, but I didn't say anything. The next day I called it, rang 3 times, then went to voicemail, and 10 minutes later, I got a message from his phone, "In meetings, stop calling." I stared at it for a long time because my dad had never told me to stop calling, not once, not even when I was a kid, and called him 3 times in a row just to ask what was for dinner. That wasn't him. I told myself I was overthinking that. Maybe he was stressed, maybe time zones were messing things up, maybe I just needed to give it a day, but then it happened again and again. Each response shorter, colder, until there were no calls at all, just silence, and the occasional message that sounded like someone trying to imitate him and getting it slightly wrong. I tried calling his direct line, the one he always kept on him, and it went straight to a block tone immediate final. I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at the screen like it had just told me something I wasn't ready to hear. My dad didn't block me. That wasn't possible. I checked his banking app access he had shared with me years ago for emergencies, and there were recent transactions, hotel charges, room service. Everything looked normal, too normal, like a system still running without the person behind it. I texted my stepmother, Diane, and she replied within seconds, faster than she ever had before. "He's fine, just busy. Don't make this a thing. Don't make this a thing." I read that line over and over because it felt less like reassurance and more like a warning. I didn't argue. I didn't push. I just sat there in the quiet of my apartment phone in my hand, replaying every message, every call, every gap where his voice should have been. And I understood something. I couldn't explain yet, something that didn't have proof, but had weight, the kind that settles in your chest and refuses to move. Something was wrong. And whatever it was, I wasn't going to find the answer from 7,000 miles away. I booked the flight at 2:17 inches the morning, still sitting on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hand, the screen lighting up the room in that quiet, artificial glow that makes everything feel more serious than it is, except this was not one of those moments that fades in the morning. This was something that had been building for days, maybe longer, something I had ignored because it was easier to believe everything was fine than to accept that it was not. I chose the earliest departure I could find, a 14-hour flight with one connection, no time to second guess, no time to explain anything to anyone, and I did not tell Diane because I already knew what she would say, that I was overreacting, that I was making this into something it was not, and I was done letting her define what was normal. I packed light. 1. Carry on a change of clothes, my laptop, my passport. In the small folder where I had printed screenshots of every message from my dad's number over the past 2 weeks, each one shorter than the last, each one slightly off like a voice trying to pass as his, but missing the details that mattered. At the airport, everything felt two ordinary people in line for coffee announcements echoing overhead, the smell of pretzels and jet fuel mixing in that familiar way. And I stood there thinking how strange it was that the world could keep moving exactly the same when something in your life had clearly shifted. I kept replaying the last real conversation I had with him. The way he had laughed at something small, the way he had paused before hanging up like he always did, as if he was about to say something else and then decided not to. And I wondered if that had been the moment I should have paid attention. During the flight, I did not sleep, not really. Just closed my eyes and went through every possibility in my head. Work, stress, bad reception, time zone confusion, but none of it explained the block tone, none of it explained the messages that did not sound like him, and none of it explained why Diane had responded so quickly every time I reached out, like she was already waiting. When I landed, the air felt heavier, warmer, different from home in a way that made everything sharper, more immediate. And I did not stop at the hotel desk longer than I had to, just enough to confirm his name. Richard Carter still checked in same room, no checkout, and when I asked how often he had been seen, the receptionist hesitated for half a second before saying his wife handles most of the communication, and that was the second moment I knew something was wrong, because my dad never let anyone handle things for him. Not like that, not ever. I took the elevator up slowly, watching the numbers light up one by one, my reflection in the mirrored wall looking calm in a way I did not feel. And when the doors opened, the hallway was quiet, too quiet, the kind that makes every step sound louder than it should, and walked toward his room with a steady pace, not rushing, not hesitating, just moving forward until I stood in front of the door, raised my hand, and knocked. I waited exactly 3 seconds after the first knock before knocking again, not louder, just more deliberate. The kind of knock that says you are not leaving until someone answers, and for a moment there was nothing, no movement, no sound, just the quiet hum of the hallway air system and the distant echo of an elevator opening somewhere down the corridor. Then I heard a faint shuffle from inside the room, something light-controlled, like someone deciding how to respond rather than reacting naturally. And that was when my chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with confirmation. The door opened just enough for the latch to catch a narrow gap, and Diane's face appeared in the space, composed, almost practiced her expression, settling into a version of surprise that arrived half a second too late. "Emily," she said, like my name was an inconvenience she had not planned for. Her eyes scanning me quickly, taking in the carry-on bag, the tired look, the fact that I was standing there instead of calling, and then she adjusted, stepping slightly forward as if to block the rest of the room from view. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone controlled but not warm. I did not answer her question. I looked past her shoulder just for a second and saw enough to confirm what I already felt: the curtains half-drawn, the bed made too neatly, a laptop open on the desk with multiple tabs, and a phone charging near the edge. The case unmistakable dark blue with a small scratch on the corner from when my dad dropped it last year. "I came to see him," I said calmly, keeping my voice even steady, the way I had learned to speak when I did not want to give anything away. She hesitated just for a moment, then smiled, a thin, controlled expression that did not reach her eyes. "He is resting," she said, shifting her weight slightly. "Still blocking the doorway, long trip meetings. You know how it is." I did not move. I did not nod. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch long enough to become uncomfortable. "Then I will wait," I said. Her smile tightened. "That is not necessary," she replied quickly, too quickly, and that was when I noticed something else. Her hand, the one holding the door, was gripping the edge just a little too firmly, knuckles pale, like she was holding something in place. I glanced down again past her to the desk, to the phone, and without thinking, I pulled my own phone out and dialed his number. The ringing sound did not come from my ear, it came from inside the room. Soft at first, then unmistakable, vibrating against the wooden surface of the desk. Diane did not turn around. She did not look at it. She just stood there completely still as the sound filled the space between us. I lowered my phone, slowly meeting her eyes, and said, "The only thing that mattered. Where is he?" She held my gaze for 2 full seconds before answering, and in that silence, I understood more than anything she could have said, because if there had been a simple explanation, she would have given it immediately. She always did fast, controlled, efficient, but now there was hesitation, calculation, something shifting behind her eyes that told me she was deciding what version of the truth to use. He stepped out, she said, "Finally," her voice even almost casual, but it landed wrong. The timing wrong, the tone wrong, everything about it just slightly off in a way that made it impossible to believe. I did not respond right away. I let the words sit there between us. Then I glanced past her again, slower this time, taking in details I had missed before the suitcase. Near the wall, still zipped, the same one he had mentioned, bringing on the trip. Untouched the shoes, by the door aligned too neatly, like they had not been moved in days. And the desk, the laptop still open. A document on the screen filled with dense text and highlighted sections, financial language signatures at the bottom, and one of those signatures was his name, Richard Carter, written in a way that looked right at first glance, but wrong, longer you looked at it. "Then why is his phone here?" I asked quietly. She did not answer that. Instead, she shifted again, opening the door just a few inches more, not enough to invite me in, just enough to change the angle. As if that alone could change what I was seeing. "Emily, you flew all this way without telling anyone," she said, her tone tightening slightly, moving away from explanation and toward control. "You are tired. You are reading too much into things." I almost smiled at that, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. The shift from denial to deflection, from answering to reframing a pattern I had seen before, but never this, clearly. "Call him," I said. She blinked once. "What?" "Call him," I repeated, holding her gaze, not raising my voice, not moving, just stating it as a fact that needed to happen. If he stepped out, call him and let me hear his voice. Another pause, longer this time, and her grip on the door tightened just enough for me to notice. "He is in a meeting," she said, and that was when I knew she had run out of prepared answers, because the story had changed again, from resting to stepping out to now being unavailable in a different way. I nodded once, slow, deliberate. "Then I will come back later," I said. And for the first time, her expression shifted in a way she could not hide, a flicker of something sharper concern, maybe even alarm, because leaving meant I was not contained, meant I could ask questions. Elsewhere meant I was no longer just standing in front of her door. I stepped back just one step, creating space, but I did not break eye contact. "I am going to talk to the front desk," again I added. My voice still calm, still controlled, and then I am going to call his office. I watched that land, watched the way her posture changed, the way her shoulders squared slightly, as if preparing for something she could no longer delay, and then she did something she had not done once since opening the door. She moved aside. The shift was small, just a step to the side, but it changed everything, because it was the first real movement that was not controlled, not calculated, just necessary. And I walked in without asking, not fast, not aggressive, just steady, like I already belonged there, like this was not a question of permission anymore. The room felt staged. The moment I crossed the threshold, not messy, not lived in, just arranged, like someone had decided what should be visible and what should not. And I took it in piece by piece. The bed too perfect, The curtains drawn at the same angle, the air faintly cool, like the thermostat had not been adjusted in a while. I walked straight to the desk and picked up his phone, the screen lighting up in my hand. My own name still there from the missed call, and I unlocked it the way he had shown me years ago. The same pattern unchanged, because my dad did not change things like that without telling me. The call log was clean to clean. Only outgoing messages, no incoming calls from me, no missed calls, nothing that matched the last 2 weeks of my attempts. Like someone had been curating what this device was allowed to remember. "Why are my calls gone?" I asked. Not looking at her, just scrolling, letting the silence build behind me. "You should not be going through his phone," she said quickly, stepping closer, but not close enough to take it from me. And that distance said everything. She was careful, measured, still trying to keep control without creating a scene. I set the phone down and shifted my focus to the laptop. The document still open, a contract, multiple pages, highlighted clauses, numbers, percentages, transfer terms, and at the bottom his name again, the same signature I had seen from the doorway. And I leaned in just slightly close enough to see the difference clearly. Now, the spacing off, the pressure, inconsistent small details most people would miss, but not me. Not after years of watching him sign everything from birthday cards to legal documents with the same steady motion. "This is not his signature," I said quietly. She did not respond. I straightened and turned to face her fully, and for the first time since I arrived, I could see it clearly. Not just hesitation, not just control, but something else underneath, something tighter, more fragile. "Where is he?" I repeated. And this time, it was not a question. It was a line drawn. A point we had reached where the next answer would decide everything. She inhaled slowly like she was about to speak, then stopped, her eyes flicking for a split second toward the door, toward the hallway, like she was calculating time options, outcomes. And that was when I understood something else, something even worse than what I had already suspected, whatever this was. It was not just about keeping me away, it was about buying time. I took a step closer, closing the distance she had been maintaining, not threatening, not raising my voice, just removing the space she was using to manage the situation. "You have already changed your story 3 times, I said, my voice, low, steady, controlled, resting, stepped out in a meeting, and none of those explain why his phone is here, why my calls are gone, or why his signature looks like that. I let that sit, then added one more sentence, simple, direct, impossible to redirect. "I am not leaving this room without the truth." She exhaled slowly, not dramatic, not loud, just controlled in a way that told me she had reached the edge of whatever version she had been holding on to. And for a moment, neither of us spoke the room, settling into a silence that felt heavier. Now more defined, like something had shifted from uncertainty into something closer to truth. "You should not have come here," she said finally, her voice lower, less polished than before. And that was the first honest thing she had said since opening the door. I did not respond to that. I stayed exactly where I was, steady waiting. She looked at the desk, then at the phone, then back at me, her expression tightening, as if she was trying to decide how much to reveal and how much to hold back. But whatever she chose, I already knew it would not be enough. "He is not in this room," she said. I nodded once. "I know." Another pause. "He is still in the hotel," she added quickly. Like that detail might soften what came next, like it might keep the situation contained. Where I asked, she hesitated again, and this time it was longer, long enough that I could see the exact moment she realized that not answering was no longer an option. "Medical floor," she said quietly. The words landed differently than everything else she had said, not controlled, not shaped, just factual, And for a second, I felt something shift in my chest. Not relief, not fear, something sharper. Something that made everything from the past 2 weeks rearrange itself instantly. Since when I asked, 3 days, she replied, and I closed my eyes for just a second, doing the math without needing to 3 days of no calls, 3 days of untouched room service, 3 days of messages that were not him. Why did you block me? I asked, opening my eyes again, keeping my voice level, even though the answer was already forming in my head. She did not look away this time. Because he asked me to keep things quiet, she said, and there it was, the first attempt to shift responsibility, to place it somewhere else, somewhere safer, but it did not hold. He did not ask you to erase my calls, I said. He did not ask you to send messages that do not sound like him, and he definitely did not ask you to sign his name on legal documents while he is not here. That last part landed harder than the rest, and I saw it in the way her shoulders tightened, in the way her eyes flicked again toward the laptop, toward the contract, still open on the screen. You do not understand, she said. And for the first time, there was something defensive in her tone, something that felt less like control and more like pressure. I stepped closer again, closing the distance completely. Now, not aggressive, just present, impossible to ignore. Then, explain it, I said quietly. She held my gaze, and for a second, I thought she might try to rebuild the story, to reshape it again, but instead, she did something different, something I had not seen from her before. She stopped controlling it. The deal had a deadline, she said, her voice steady but thinner now, and if it did not go through, everything he has been working on for the past year would fall apart. I did not react, not outwardly. So you decided to sign for him, I said. She shook her head quickly. I decided to protect what he built, she replied. And there it was, the justification. The version of logic that made sense to her, even if it did not hold under anything real. I let the silence stretch again, then asked the only question that mattered now. Does he know? She did not answer right away, and that silence told me more than any explanation could have, because if he knew, she would have said yes immediately. She would have used it as her shield, her justification, her way out. But instead, she looked to me, without speaking, her expression, holding steady for a second before something in it shifted just slightly, just enough. He is aware of the situation, she said, carefully choosing each word like it mattered, and I almost smiled again. Not because it was funny, but because it was precise in the way people are when they are trying not to lie directly. That is not what I asked, I said, my voice calm, even giving her no room to move around it. Does he know you signed his name? This time, she looked away first, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. There was no time, she replied. And that was not an answer, that was an excuse. I nodded once, slow absorbing it, letting it settle into place with everything else I had seen since I stepped into the room. So, no, I said. She did not correct me. That was the confirmation. The room felt different after that. Not louder, not more tense, just clearer, like all the pieces had finally aligned into something I could see without guessing. I turned back to the laptop, scrolling through the document again, slower this time, reading more carefully, the numbers, the clauses, the transfer language. Everything structured around a deadline that had already passed, everything dependent on a signature that was not actually his. What happens when he finds out? I asked, not looking at her, just stating it into the space between us. He will not see it the way you do, she said quickly. Stepping closer now, trying to regain ground, trying to rebuild control with explanation instead of avoidance. This was necessary. I stopped scrolling and closed the laptop gently, not slamming it. Not reacting, just ending the document in a way that felt final, necessary for who I asked, turning back to face her fully. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out right away, and that pause was longer than the others, heavier, because this time there was no prepared answer, left no version of the story that could reshape what had already been said. I did not push her further. I did not raise my voice. I just reached for my phone again and unlocked it. My reflection steady on the screen, my hands not shaking my breathing, even everything about me controlled in a way that surprised even me. "Which floor?" I asked. She hesitated again, then answered quietly. I nodded once, simple direct, and slipped my phone back into my pocket. "I am going to see him," I said. She stepped forward, immediately blocking my path this time. Not the door, but me. Her movement faster, less measured than before. "Emily, you cannot just walk into—" I did not let her finish. "I am not asking," I said, my voice still calm, still level, but final in a way that made the rest of the sentence unnecessary. She held my gaze for a second, then another, and I saw it clearly. Now, not control, not calculation, but something closer to uncertainty. Because whatever she had planned, whatever timeline she had been managing, I was no longer part of it. I stepped past her without waiting, without hesitation. Moving toward the door, my hand already on the handle before she said anything else. "He is stable," she added quickly, like that detail might change something, like it might slow me down. I paused for half a second, just enough to register the word stable. Then opened the door and walked out into the hallway, the quiet stretching out in front of me again, but this time it did not feel uncertain. It felt like direction. I did not run, but everything in me moved faster than it had all day, each step down the hallway measured but urgent, the carpet soft under my shoes, the numbers above the elevator doors lighting up slower than they should have, like time had. Decided to stretch just enough to make me feel every second of it. 12. I pressed the button and waited, watching my reflection in the brushed metal, steady face-controlled breathing. No panic, just focus. Because whatever was waiting upstairs, I needed to see it clearly. The doors opened and I stepped inside the space, quiet and closed to the faint hum of movement filling the air as the elevator began to rise, one floor at a time, each number, marking the distance between what I knew and what I was about to confirm. When the doors opened again, the air felt different, cooler, quieter, in a way that was not accidental, and the hallway was lined with closed doors and soft lighting, the kind meant to keep everything calm, contained. I stepped out and moved toward the front desk at the end of the corridor, a small station with a single attendant who looked up as I approached, her expression neutral but attentive. "I am here for Richard Carter," I said, keeping my voice even professional, the way I had heard him speak in situations where details mattered. She glanced at her screen, then back at me. "Are you family?" she asked. I held Herrgaze. Yes. There was a pause, just long enough for her to decide. Then she nodded slightly and gestured down the hall. "Room 1214. I thanked her and turned my steps slower now, not because I was hesitating, but because I needed to take everything in every detail, every signal that might tell me something before I even reached the door. When I stopped in front of it, I did not knock right away. I listened. No voices, no movement, just the quiet, steady presence of a room in use. I raised my hand and knocked once, firm, clear. A few seconds passed. Then I heard movement inside, different from before, not controlled, not measured, just real, and the door opened. It was not Diane. It was a nurse, mid-30s, calm, composed, her expression shifting slightly when she saw me. "Can I help you?" she asked. I did not answer her question. I looked past her shoulder, just enough to see the room, the bed, the monitors, the shape of someone lying there. Still present, real. "I am his daughter," I said quietly. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. I walked in slowly, not rushing, not reacting, just moving forward, until I could see him clearly, my dad, exactly where he should have been, all along, not gone, not missing, just kept out of reach. And for the first time since this started, everything made sense in the simplest way possible. He was here, he had been here, and I had been the one kept away. I did not speak right away, and neither did he. The room settling into a quiet that felt different from every other silence I had experienced that day, not tense, not uncertain, just real, grounded in something that did not need to be guessed or interpreted. He looked at me, eyes clearer than I expected, tired but present, and for a moment, I saw the exact same expression he used to have when I walked into a room unexpectedly, a mix of surprise and recognition that did not need words. "Emily," he said, his voice softer than usual but unmistakably his. And that was enough, that one word undoing every message, every silence, every controlled response I had been given for the past 2 weeks. I stepped closer, stopping just beside the bed, not reaching for him immediately, just letting the moment settle into something steady. "You should have told me," I said quietly, not accusing, not emotional, just stating the truth as it was. He exhaled slowly, his gaze shifting for a second before returning to me. "I asked her to keep things simple," he replied, and I nodded once because I already understood what that meant and what it did not. "Simple is not the same as silent," I said. He did not argue with that. The nurse moved quietly in the background, adjusting something on the monitor, then stepped out without interrupting, leaving the door slightly open enough to let the hallway light in, but not enough to break the privacy of the room. I glanced at the side table and saw a folder different from the one upstairs, thicker, official, and I picked it up, flipping it open just enough to recognize the same contract, the same structure, the same signature that was not his. I set it back down gently. "She signed for you," I said. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, not in shock, not in confusion, just in recognition, like something he had suspected, but had not confirmed until now. "I thought she might try," he admitted, his voice quieter. And that was the moment everything aligned completely. Not just what had happened, but why. I did not react outwardly. I just nodded once, slow, deliberate. "It is already done," I said. He opened his eyes again, looking at me more directly now. "Then we fix it," he replied, and there was something in his tone, not forceful, not dramatic, just certain, the same certainty I had heard my entire life when he made decisions that mattered. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, unlocking it and placing it on the table within his reach. "You should call them yourself," I said, my voice calm, steady, leaving no room for interpretation. He looked at the phone, then back at me. And for a second, there was something almost like relief in his expression, not because of the situation, but because the control had shifted back to where it belonged. I stepped back slightly, giving him space, not stepping away from the moment, just allowing it to unfold the way it needed to. "I am here now," I added quietly. He nodded once. That was enough.